Now, on to the topic of the best beginner bike. This is a question I get asked so much in the comments. What's the best beginner bike for me? I'm 6'2". What's the best beginner bike? I'm 5'3". What's the best beginner bike? Etc. etc. And I do get a bit frustrated when I see guys on YouTube recommending bikes to potential beginners. Like I saw a guy test riding a Indian Scout, and he said, this will be completely fine for beginners. And I thought, wow. What sort of beginner are we talking about? And this is the big crux of the problem, and why I'm making this video. The problem is beginners range from a 55-year-old person who has never ridden a motorcycle in their life and is super nervous to, say, a 18, 19-year-old young guy or girl who's grown up riding motorbikes on the farm or riding dirt bikes or whatever. Both are beginners on the road. Both are going for their motorcycle license, but both have completely different experiences and life experiences. Now, the problem is, as humans, and we all do it, I do it, you tend to look at things framed from your personal own life experience. And it's a natural thing to do. We just assume that, what we experienced growing up and in life is what everyone has experienced. And I do find that a lot of the reviewers fall into the trap of, I'll see a reviewer who's riding 3 different bikes a week or 2 different bikes a week, testing it, and they're giving their opinion of whether a bike is suitable for a beginner based on their life experience. Just they do it subconsciously. They don't realize that they're making that decision or that opinion, or forming that opinion from a point of view of a very experienced rider. So a very experienced rider is going to jump onto an Indian Scout, for instance, and think, yeah, this is easy. This is super easy to ride. Like, I found it very easy to ride. But then you have to think about, okay, that's because I've been riding bikes since I was 25. I'm now 60. And have owned all sorts of bikes, from cruisers to sports bikes to trail bikes to adventure bikes, everything. I've owned it. So I'm coming to forming an opinion based on a lot of experience. And so, yeah, it's going to seem easy to me. But imagine you're 55, never ridden a motorcycle in your life, super nervous, and someone says to you, here you go, Indian Scout, hop on it, easy to ride, go for it. They're going to find it very intimidating. They're going to find it difficult. They're going to find it scary, and they're going to think, if this is motorcycling, I want no bar of it. And I've seen it time and time again. The beginner buys the wrong bike. They get nervous. They feel uncomfortable every time they ride it, and they end up not riding it. And then they decide motorcycling's not for me. And at the end of the day, it may not be. But I feel that they weren't given a good proper chance because they got bad advice, basically. So whenever someone asks me which is the best beginner bike, this is one simple thing that I would recommend everyone take on board, especially if you're a beginner. That is, buy the bike that least intimidates you. So, if you're a bit unsure and you look at a bike and you think, well, there's a CB500, for instance, which is, I would feel, is a very easy bike to ride. And I'll tell you a little bit of a story about that bike in a minute. There's a CB500 or there's a CB125. Now, I'm just choosing Hondas, but it could be any brand. If you look at the 125 and think, yeah, I could ride that easy, and you look at the CB500F and you think, yeah, I could ride that, but yeah, I'm a bit nervous about that, go for the CB125. Get your experience, get comfortable on the road. Part of the journey of learning to ride a motorcycle is learning to mix in traffic, learning to be comfortable on the highway, learning all these different things on top of learning how to control the motorcycle. So, which is why I recommend just buy the least intimidating bike you can buy, because your first bike is not going to be the bike you have forever. It's just the bike to learn on. Now, having said that, there will be riders out there who will jump on a bike and be instantly comfortable and, may be able to have an Indian Scout as their first motorcycle. There will be riders out there. You'll know if that's you. You'll say, yeah, I can do this, I can handle it, I'm going to go for it. to those guys, I say go for it, try it out and see how it goes. But if you do start to feel like it's a bit intimidating to ride, or you're uncomfortable riding it, or you feel that maybe it might be a bit too much for you at the start, don't give up on motorcycling. Just think about perhaps buying something that's a bit easier to ride, develop your skills, develop your comfort levels on the bike, and then then pick your dream bike after that. Now, the little story about the CB500F I was going to tell you about was my wife decided she wanted to go for her motorcycle license a few years ago. Now, she'd been on the back of me on my bike for years, on all different bikes I've had, including my K1300S with 170 horsepower, and I could give that a handful and she was fine on the back. So when she decided she wanted to go for her motorcycle license, I thought, yeah, she'll be fine, no problems at all. So we went into the Honda dealership with the objective in mind to buy a Honda CB125, because I'd heard that the motorcycle rider training courses were using the CB125, and I thought, yeah, that's perfect for a first beginner bike to start on and to learn on. And when we got into the dealership, the salesman there, who I know well and is a friend of mine, talked us into buying the CB500F, thinking that it would be a bike that she could grow into. We bought the CB500F. I thought, well, yeah, it makes sense that she can grow into that bike. And she just was not comfortable on it. I think it was just a little bit too much of a reach to the ground for her. But to her credit, she tried and she gave it a good go. Everything was going all right. She was pretty nervous, but everything was going all right until she dropped it the first time. And what happened was she went to pull up on the side of the road. The camber of the road fell away. The bike's upright. She goes to put her foot down and she can't reach the road. And she's reaching, and then bang, the bike went over and she just couldn't stop it. Thankfully, the Hondas are very cheap to repair. Like, it was a brake lever, might have been a grip, a bar end, and the gear lever was bent a little bit, which we straightened up. So thankfully, there was very little damage, and I was surprised at how cheap the parts were and how easy it was to fix, so that was really good. But that one drop really shook her confidence, and I don't believe that if she was on the CB125, she would have had that drop, because she would have been lower to the ground and she would have been able to put her feet down, and I think that was the start of the end, really. So anyway, we did some more training and more practicing, and she dropped the bike again. And so that then really shook her confidence. So we decided to get some professional training and do a stay upright course and put her onto a CB125 and see how she goes. So she did a day course on the CB125, and she was still super nervous and super stiff, but we just kept pushing it, kept going. She wanted to keep going just to try and get through it. And then it came to the day of doing her license test, and we had a good talk about it first thing in the morning, and she had two options. She could do the license test on the CB125, or she could do her test on a scooter. They had the option of doing either or. And she still didn't feel confident enough to do the test on the CB125. And I said, well, what if you tried the scooter? It's probably going to be easier to ride. Would that make you feel more comfortable? So she decided, yep, she's going to do it on the scooter. Now, you couldn't make this up. On the day of the test, the morning of the test, it started raining. And on the test, you have to do sort of like emergency braking and turning and things like that. The CB125 had ABS, the scooter didn't. And she'd done all her emergency braking on the bike with ABS, the CB125. And so she slammed the front brakes on, the scooter went over, landed on her leg, ruptured a vein or an artery, and she ended up in hospital because the leg just blew up straight away, just filled up with blood. And that was the end of the test. That was also the end of her going for her motorcycle license. She said, that's it, no more, never again. And I do wonder if we had started off on the CB125, whether she'd be on a bike today, or maybe she was just that sort of person that was just too nervous, and she was never, ever going to be comfortable on the bike. But the weird thing is she's comfortable on the back of the bike with me, so, you just never know, you can't pick it. Anyway, that's my little story about my wife as a beginner trying to get her motorcycle license. So back to the topic of what's the best beginner bike? Well, the best beginner bike and the safest advice I can give to you is, or pick a bike that you find least intimidating. Learn how to ride a bike, learn how to be comfortable on the road, learn how to control the motorcycle, learn how to be comfortable in traffic, And then once you'll know when you're comfortable and you've got this, then go for your next bike, a step up if you like, and just progress your way to your dream bike.